Hello, kids. How are you? I hope you're all doing great. I am Teacher Fritz, and welcome to our lesson for this day. Today, we're going to talk about the elements of a short story. But before that, let us define first what is a short story. Story is defined as something that tells about a single event or experience. It is a piece of prose fiction that can typically be read in a single setting, usually between 20 minutes to an hour. It is fictional or not true, although it may be based on something that is true. It has 500 to 1,500 words in length. It has beginning, middle, and end, and it creates an impression on the readers. It gives some sort of a lesson and sort of ideas towards the readers as well. Now we have five elements of a short story. These are the setting, character, conflict, plot, and theme. Now let's talk about the first one. Element of a short story is the setting. Setting tells the readers where and when the story takes place. For example, if we tell the setting of the story The Lion King, that would be the African savannah and in the present day. On the other hand, if we tell the setting of the story The Hunger Games, that was set in America, but a long time in the future. Another is if we tell the setting of the story Mary Poppins, it was set on 1910 in London. Here are some examples in identifying the setting of the story. For example, in plays, at church, in the market, under the bridge, near the hospital, in the forest, and by the beach. For example, in time, last January, by winter, last New Year, during summer, on Christmas Day, and on his birthday. So that's the setting. The second element of a short story is the character or characterization. It is the creation of imaginary people who appear to be real to the readers. The writer gives information about the characters in the story. Now, here in the second element, it is a person or sometimes the characters are animals who takes part in the action of a short story or other literary work. Now, we have different types of characters as well. Now, these are the types of characters. We have the protagonist, antagonist, static, dynamic character, round character, and flat character. Now, the first one is the protagonist. He or she is the good character in the story. He or she is often opposed, exploited, or victimized. Now, let's have an example in the story or the series Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. Now, the protagonist in the story is Daniel Radcliffe, played as Harry Potter. He possesses the good character and he is the opponent of the uh, bad character. Now, the second character is the antagonist. He or she is the bad character. He or she causes the problems and sufferings of the protagonist or to the other characters in the story. Now, in the story Harry Potter, our antagonist there is Lord Voldemort. He is a bad character in the story. Another type of character is static. Now, static is a character who does not change. He or she is consistently bad or good from the beginning up to the end of the story. Now, our example here is still Lord Voldemort, who played as the antagonist as well as the static character in the story because he is consistently the bad character from the beginning till the end of the story. Next type of character is dynamic character. He or she is a character who changes. This type of character transforms from being good to bad or bad to good. Now, a dynamic character is someone whose personality changes through the story due to a change in the situation or change in the plot. This may be from weak to strong, from strong to weak, from being a cherry person to a person in distress. Sometimes the protagonist has this type of character as well, but not always. For example, in the series Neville Longbottom, Harry's classmate, who is perpetually a petrified student at Hogwarts. However, towards the end of the series, he leads an army of students to fight against Lord Voldemort, the antagonist or the evil character feared by all of the characters in the story. Next is a round character. Now, round character, it is the character that is hard to describe and predict. It has many qualities and emotion. Now, these characters has many-sided and complex with more than three characteristics shown. The character that develops through the story and it is very realistic. Now, the examples in the stories or the characters that possesses round character are the following: Ronald Weasley, Hermione Granger, Harry Potter, Jenny Weasley, as well as Severus Snape are among some of the round characters that can be seen in this story. Now, the last type of character is flat character. He is, or it is a character who is easy to describe and predict. He possesses and displays few traits. So these flat characters have few but easily recognizable traits that make the stereotypical characters. For example, this is Mr. Filch in the story or in the series Harry Potter. He is a caretaker of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and he possesses a flat character, with his only undying obsession in finding students who breaks the school rules. Now, another examples are those characters who are bullied, who cast down, as well as mean teachers, and many others. So those are the types of characters. We have protagonist, antagonist, static, dynamic, round, and flat. The third element of a short story is the conflict. Now, it is a series of events through which the writer reveals what is happening, to whom, and why. Conflict is a problem which the main characters need to solve. Now, under conflict, we have two types: internal conflict and external conflict. When we say internal conflict, the character's problem is caused by own limitations and weaknesses. On the other hand, external conflict, the character's problem is caused by the people or things around him. Now, our example earlier is the story Harry Potter. Now, the protagonist, or Harry, is experiencing external conflict. Now, the character's problem. Now, Harry's problem is caused by a person, or let's say Lord Voldemort, and all the things that surrounds him as well. Now, under internal conflict, we have man versus himself. Now, it is described as a person who is struggling because of himself. Now, the problem here is himself. Now, for example, Andrew can't forgive himself from his own past mistakes. So that is an example of a man versus himself under internal conflict. On the other hand, we have the external conflict, which is man versus nature, and man versus society. Now, under man versus man, it is described as a character who is struggling because of others' character's decision or action. Like, for example, Andrew was forbidden by his parents to go to school. Another is man versus nature. It is described as a character who is struggling because of the unexpected event in the environment. Like, for example, Andrew is caught in the rain on his way to his cousin's house. Now, his problem was due to the environment or due to the sudden rain. The last one is the man versus society. Now, character is struggling because of the beliefs and rules of the society. For example, Andrew was punished to sing Lupang Hinirang because he did not use the pedestrian lane in crossing the street. Now, his problem occurred because he did not follow or he did not cross or follow in crossing the street using the pedestrian lane. That is why he is punished to saying lupang. So these are under the conflict. The two types, internal conflict and external conflict. Under internal, we have man versus himself, and under external conflict, we have man versus man versus nature, and man versus society. The fourth element of a short story is the plot. It is the list and sequence of events in the story. Now, under plot, we have 5 parts, and these are the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Now, let's talk about the parts of plot. The first one is exposition. Now, it is in the beginning of the story. It introduces the characters, the setting, and the conflict. Now, in exposition, it is a part of the story that sets the scene and provides background information of the characters. It can be helpful to think of exposition as the setup of the story. So all you have to remember in expositions, the beginning of the story, it introduces the characters, it describes the settings, or it is the setup of the story. Next is the rising action. The rising action happens when the conflict is addressed by the main characters in the story. It is the part when the protagonist faces crisis or unstable state. Now, the rising action is the series of conflict as the story builds. Next part is the climax. The climax is the most interesting and breathtaking of the story. It presents the protagonist's most challenging moment. Now, the climax is the part of the greatest tension in the story. It is kind of the turning point of the story, and sometimes it is hard to tell. Now, this part of the story is the most exciting part, and everything changes in the story. Now, the fourth part of plot is the falling action. Now, it happens instantly after the climax. It reveals the consequences, either good or bad, the characters need to deal with after the turning of events. Now, falling action comes after the climax. And when things start to fall off a little bit, that kinds, tells you what happened after the climax. And the last part of the plot is the resolution. The resolution is, or it tells what happens to the characters after the problem or conflict is being resolved. It leaves readers a certain emotion such as sadness, happiness, disappointment, pity, or even heartbreak. Now, the resolution is the ending part of the story. It is how all the conflicts have been resolved in the story. Sometimes they are solved, sometimes they are not. But it is the way the story is wrapped up, the resolution. So that's the five parts of the plot. We have its position, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the resolution. Now, the last element of a short story is the theme. Now, the theme is the message the writer intends to communicate by telling the story. Now, theme is different from the topic. Now, themes can be used or can be described or tell in a word only, just like judgment, survival, peace and war, love, heroism, good and evil, circle of life, suffering, deception, coming of age. But in telling or describing the theme or message of the story is not limited to a word only. You can give it or you can tell it in a phrase or in a sentence. Like, for example, the story Beauty and the Beast. The theme or the message that the author is trying to convey would be don't judge a book by its cover. Now, it is said that theme is different from the topic. Now, in the story Beauty and the Beast, the topic would be there is a young, lovely woman who fell in love with a beast. That's the topic. And when we say the message or the theme is that don't judge a book by its cover. So that's the message that the author is trying to convey there. Another example is the story Toy Story. The theme or the message there is friendship can conquer all things. So that is an example of a theme. So those are the five elements of a short story. We have the setting, character, conflict, plot, and theme. I hope you have learned something from our lesson this day, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. This is your teacher, Teacher Fritz. Have a good day.